Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield Presents Let's See What's Out There, an entertainment video stream and podcast focused on film and television. My name's Keith Isles and today I'm joined by
Pete Mealy.
And we are both film and television enthusiasts. And in today's episode, if you haven't already gathered from the title, we are going to be discussing the first season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which has just finished airing here in the UK. I know you guys across the pond where you are, Pete, had it a little bit earlier. So warnings ahead here. We are going to be having a spoiler-filled conversation about this entire show, discussing all the episodes, all the characters and everything. So if you've not seen Strange New Worlds Season 1 and you don't want it spoiled, then go ahead and check it out. It's currently available to watch on Paramount Plus. Go and check that out. And please do come back and see us afterwards if you want to hear what our thoughts were. If it is your first time here, then welcome. Please do consider giving this a thumbs up, giving this a like if you find what we're talking about here remotely interesting, and consider subscribing to the channel and checking out some of the other work. We cover film and television, all sorts of genres, both new and old films. So please check out some of the work on here. And if you hit the bell icon, you'll get notified as and when new content drops. So with that out of the way, it's really good to see you, Pete.
It's great seeing you. Yeah,
it's been a little while. I want to start by saying, sadly, I think we were robbed here because I don't know about you. We've previously done, we did it originally in podcast form, and then in the last year or so, we've been doing a stream like this, and we have covered Star Trek Picard, both seasons 1 and 2. We covered Star Trek Discovery season 3. We've talked about other projects and other Star Trek along the way, even Lower Decks and things of that nature. And I'm really, because we have a format for this show that it normally follows. And we normally give a brief synopsis of what's happened. We talk about the production crew, people involved behind the scenes. Then we talk about the Easter eggs that are scattered through each episode and references to the larger Star Trek universe. But then it gets interesting because then we get into speculation as to where we think the next episode might go and where the characters may be going. And then we get into our nitpicks and thoughts and all this and give it a rank pin rating for each episode. Obviously, we did that for Picard. We did that for Strange New Worlds. We've done it for Marvel shows as well and Star Wars shows. So it's all on the channel. Check that out. But the point I'm getting to here is, Pete, the reason we haven't done this is because Paramount Plus didn't launch here in the UK until much later. In fact, I think it started in May over in the States. By the time we got it, pretty much the whole show had already aired. And what I think is sad is it's dropped every week here in the UK. And I every week thought, wouldn't it have been lovely to have done one of our episodes and to discuss this in depth and speculate and nitpick and all of those sort of things. And instead of what's probably going to be 2 hours tonight, we would have 10 plus hours of talking about this. Because I have to say, I really, really wanted to discuss this show with you every week when I watched it.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, I think it really hampered our friendship because, I could not talk to you after May because I knew stuff you didn't know, and I was so worried that I would say anything that would edge on a spoiler. I think we exchanged maybe 5 or 6 sentences just because I was so paranoid.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank
I
you for thank
apologize.
you. Well, I say thank you for not spoiling it. I mean, obviously, I
Yeah.
was very. In the meantime, I was very busy with Obi-Wan Kenobi, which
Oh,
covered on
did it?
this channel as well. We covered every episode of that. Um,
Mm.
you were on one of them, weren't you? If memory serves. Did you come on one of them?
Was I on one of
I
them?
think you
I
came on one of
memory
them.
does not serve.
Anyway,
Okay.
but we covered that, and yeah. So we covered every episode of that. But it's funny actually because this airing in the UK, I've had, if you like, almost two perfect prequel shows running simultaneously because
Mm.
we've just had the last season of Better Call Saul playing on Netflix here, and obviously Strange New Worlds on Paramount Plus. So I bet every week there's been a new episode dropped, and yeah, I've been loving that. So, but I don't know. I suppose before we get into it, I know we're not going to be able to run quite our normal format, but I believe you have prepared, Pete, a very amusing, I'm sure,
Mm.
synopsis of the season, right?
I have prepared the briefest synopsis of the season possible.
Right.
Yes.
Well, this time then, I get to say, hit it.
That's fantastic. Okay. In this season of Strange New Worlds, we meet Pike, who is grappling with what it means to know your own future. We meet his girlfriend, who shows up every so often. We get to know Number One, who is a genetically engineered Elysian, which is against Starfleet fleet protocols. Speaking of genetically engineered people, the chief security officer is a descendant of Khan, and her family were murdered by the Gorn. So she has issues she needs to figure out. Spock and T'Pring explore their relationship and each other's bodies. Christine Chapel is also around, ready to explore their relationship, and maybe Spock's body too. The helmsman is Erica Ortegas. And look, there's a lot of crew and a lot of dysfunction to sort through, so she's probably going to have to wait for season 2 to do anything interesting. Speaking of dysfunction, there's the chief medical officer, Joseph Mbenga, who is hiding his daughter in a transporter because she is sick until a Deus Ex Nebula solves that problem for us. Also, don't get too attached to the Anar chief engineer Hemmer because he doesn't make it. Cadet Uhura did, but it helps her realize that she should remain on Enterprise. We also meet George Sam Kirk, which I guess is just a primer for when we meet alternate timeline James T. Kirk, who shows up to help us compare and contrast Pike versus Kirk. We wrap all this up with storylines about religious zealotry, dealing with terror, finding your own path in life, following the rules and not following the rules, outsmarting space pirates, Gorn, and Romulans. And we have to see what happens next season and if the crew will continue to coalesce.
Very good, Pete, as always. What can I say? You know, concise, slightly amusing, a nice bit of irony. Very good. Very good. Well,
Yeah.
listen, I mean, we're gonna sort of drill into this and talk about various aspects and no doubt nitpick and this sort of thing. But before we actually do that, because you and I have not spoken about this at all
No.
before we're recording this, um, broadly speaking, what was your nitpicks or whatever aside? What was your overall impression of this show, and how is this show for you overall?
Um, it's a real mixed bag. Like I uh I have got to admit that like it did bring tears to my eyes in a lot of places, and some I think most of those were like nostalgia tears, right? Like
Right.
geek um, geek nerd pandering tears, right?
Yeah.
But like the shots of the ships through space were amazing. The having Pike do the opening credits speech,
Yeah.
just like, ah, man, blew my mind, right? To get something like that back, it really hit a lot of my nerd pleasure buttons. But then it feels like most episodes then also hit my nerd rage buttons at different
Okay.
points, and
Okay.
and so I would walk away with like a real sweet and sour punch. I mean, I think a lot of episodes were more sweet, and some episodes were definitely more sour, but
Hmm.
I don't think I can say like overall I loved it or overall I hated it. When I look at it, it's a real yin and yang, right? Like I cannot separate the parts that I did not like from the parts that I did like.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean that's interesting, and we'll get into that. Um, I have to say, from my perspective, so here's the thing. Um, Obviously, we've only had this show running for what, a couple of years, 2.5 years, whatever it is, and we've only, because of that, we've only talked about new Trek, as people call it. The Trek, the Trek since Discovery, right? Since Discovery started, and basically, and our backgrounds, which we've covered in depth on many episodes, is we have a love for all of the Star Trek that came before. We have a particular soft spot for Enterprise, which I actually think is quite relevant, and we'll get into. But
Yeah.
what I'll say is, I think when we've reviewed the episodes previously, whether it's been Discovery or Picard, we've always been left somewhat disappointed by the end of it. We've always used that term. It hasn't quite stuck the landing, and it's usually been down to, there's been nothing wrong with how the shows have been produced or the quality of the visual effects and the sets and the costumes and the quality of acting and all of that. The disappointment has always been to do with the writing. It's always been that, hasn't it? And I made quite a bold statement on our first episode about Picard season 2, episode 1. And I said it had been the best episode of Star Trek since Trek came back. Yeah. How I will say, every episode of this for me has been better than any Trek we've had since the 2009 J.J. Abrams film. I would say
Mm.
for me, every episode, whether I've had a nitpick, whether it's landed or not, this show has blown me away. And
Man, I do
I've
not agree, but okay.
okay, no, that's good. All right, fair enough. But whereas we've always had, whether it's Picard season 1, season 2, Discovery 3, or whatever, we've always had like disappointment, haven't we?
Yeah.
Whereas I haven't had that level of disappointment with any of this.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know.
It'd be a good
Like I
discussion.
said, I'm real conflicted, right? Because if um I guess trying to look at it as a season in total,
Yep.
I think it is definitely better than Picard seasons 1 and 2. Um but I think Discovery season 1 was pretty good. And so I don't know that I would place this above that.
Right.
Um
But to be fair, without Discovery, we wouldn't even have this.
you're right. You're right.
So I
Uh
mean,
Yeah, and I think that there's also, like, I want to be fair to Picard. The first couple of episodes of Picard season 1, I thought crushed it, right? And even 1 or 2 episodes in Picard season 2 were great. And so I think there are episodes of Picard that are better than episodes of Strange New Worlds if I was going to assign them rankings. Um, but uh, I think, what I will say is that yes, overall, I think if we're looking at Strange New Worlds, season one is a success,
Mm-hmm.
which is difficult to say for lots of other seasons of New Trek. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, let's yeah, and I've yeah. I mean, we'll get into lots of things. I've got lots of thoughts here, as I'm sure you have. So, but let's. I put a few slides together. I haven't quite got
Ooh, yeah.
slide collection that we normally have, because obviously we can't follow that format really. As I said, that's my biggest disappointment here. Is I'd have loved to have talked about each episode as they dropped. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
never mind. We're doing a whole season thing, and I'm sure I know you've mentioned you've got some friends that want to come on as of Heart Eye, so I'm sure we're going to have more um, discussions on this channel about this. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's go. So what I've done here is I've looked at what's cast we've got that are, if you like, playing younger versions of character or versions of characters
Alternate.
already
Yeah.
established. Yeah, alternate versions of characters already established. Because I'm a bit of a by my own admission, I'm a bit of a stickler with continuity, and casting is an important part of that for me. Bearing in mind that some of these characters, this is now the third iteration we've had because of obviously the Kelvin timeline films as well. So, yeah, so here we go again. But the first, yeah, so here's sort of, well, the main ones. I've got some other slides as well, but these are characters that are, if you like, already. I mean, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say. Sorry, I'm tired. It's been a long day, and I'm not really being particularly eloquent here today. What I'm trying to say is, if I had to criticize anything here, it's that nearly all of the cast are either characters that have been seen before, or they're related to characters that we already know. There's only really a couple of completely original characters here. And,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just, again, about this, the size of this world, and the fact that we can't sort of get away from it's that sort of curse of the prequels, isn't it? But
Yeah. And it's like, what do we get by having these connections? What I think a question I kept asking myself early on in some of these episodes is what are we gaining by having this connection? Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Well,
so
here's the thing, right? Here's what I this is super nerdy, but this is how I look at this, and bear with me here again, right? So I think, for me, rather than looking at this as a prequel to the original series and everything that comes after, in my sort of head, it works better for me if I look at this as a sequel to Enterprise. Okay. And the reason, more will become apparent, I'm sure, as we go through this conversation. But the reason I say that is, this is set about 100 years after Enterprise-ish, 90 to 100, whatever it is. Yeah. And it's made 20 years after Enterprise was made, which is quite frightening.
yeah.
And I think it really works. The design elements and whatever work. The fact that, like the Enterprise, for example, is sort of that gunmetal grey color rather than the white of the original series and the movies. Yeah, they sort of elected to go with that sort of gunmetal grey, which is what the NX-01 was with Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
But But here's where I get really nerdy and timey-wimey, so bear with me, right? For me, when Enterprise was out, and as you know, I love that show 20 years ago.
Me
I was
too.
still watching it. I was still being a nerd about this stuff. I always looked at Enterprise as a sequel to First Contact rather than a prequel to the original series again. Okay, because I always thought of it this way. First of all, we know it was a follow-on from that because you get James Cromwell back as Zephyrin Cochrane in the first episode, you know, in that video.
Yeah.
You get the Borg, which lots of people had problems with, but it actually worked because
it works.
It was the sphere that came out of the Borg cube, you know, that landed on Earth in 2063 or when First Contact was, and all of this, and then, you know, got uncovered nearly 90 years later or whatever. And it worked from that point of view, but also the reason I sort of always thought that it worked, and I sort of, in my mind, looked at that as an alternate timeline that Picard and crew had set up, right, was because when Riker, Geordi, and Troy, and I guess Barclay and a few others, but they meet Zephyrin Cochrane, right? And one of the first things they do is they show him, because they have that cheesy line about, oh, you're all astronauts on some kind of Star Trek. Remember, he says that. But they show him the Enterprise through a telescope, and they say it's the Enterprise. And I think to myself, so was the NX-1 called the Enterprise because of that incident? Do you know what I mean? I always looked at it that way. It's like, did that fuel that? And so what I'm saying is this a further extension of that timeline that Star Trek Enterprise set up, and this is, you know, 100 years on from that, rather than thinking of it as a prequel to everything that's coming that we've already seen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good way to set your mind for it.
Because it could be a ripple. You know, we've got alternate timelines like the Kelvin timeline, and then we've got extreme alternates like the mirror universe, which I know drives you nuts, but you know, we've got that. But there's also likely to be ripples as well, and I think that this could be one of those ripples that's extremely close to the original series, but as I said, was a timeline that was set up through Enterprise, through First Contact.
Okay.
Am I going too deep with this?
No, I like it. I like it. It's a good headcanon.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, it just gets me over the whole being too anal about continuity and whatever. I think if you look at Enterprise as, you know, its own thing, and this is a sequel to that, then it kind of works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I've gone off on I didn't even know where I was going, but there you go.
No, I'm okay with it.
Cool. And of course, it's also a sequel to The Cage and the first 2 seasons of Discovery, right?
Yeah, and you know what else I was just thinking? I looked it up to be sure, right? But in Strange New Worlds, we find out that number 1 is Illyrian, right? And that, I think the first other screen appearance of Illyrians was Enterprise.
Yes, it was. So again, there you go. That's what I mean. It sort of works within that continuity and all of this sort of thing. I mean, bearing in mind, when we're talking about canon and continuity and all that nerdy stuff that drives people mad, you know, nothing that happens in this, for me anyway, is as problematic as the fact that they've had to, you know, ignore and redact the fact that, you know, Discovery, the Spore Drive, Section 31, the Mirror Universe, and all of that sort of thing. When you think of it, 3 of these characters on the screen now know about that stuff already, but just don't talk about it. And that if anything is more problematic than any other continuity issues, I think. But yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or
So
the
by the way, yeah, so the cast there, I have to say these four, so I think they're all killing it and nailing it. What do you think for these guys?
Yeah, I think my only complaint about these four cast members is that sort of continuity with Discovery that you mentioned,
Right.
right? Where like I have a hard time reconciling this Spock with the Spock who broke out of a mental facility in Discovery season two, right? Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense. Um, that this is the same character, but I'm perfectly happy to blame that on Discovery season two and say that this is a more fitting Spock that we saw on the original series or any of those sort of timeline episodes or movies, including the Kelvin universe, right? And I think
Mhm.
we get to see a lot of the character development of Spock as a Starfleet um, officer. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, this is still, 7 years before Spock of the original series. Yeah.
yeah.
And so he is a younger Spock, as um, Zachary Quinto was in the Kelvin films. Um, I think Ethan Peck looks less like Leonard Nimoy than Quinto did, right?
Yeah.
However, performance wise, I I think he's nailing it, because
Oh
what
yeah.
what I think is interesting here is, because this is 7 years before the Spock we know from the original series, he's still dealing with a lot. He's still young. He's still less than 30. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
still dealing with, um, his human side, his emotions. And even in the cage, because the character of Spock, as played by Nimoy in that original pilot, hadn't been properly developed. And I don't know whether you remember, but he was more shouty and he smiled at one point and all of that sort of thing, which is obviously taking place even before this. So again,
Yeah.
it sort of makes sense. And I think Ethan Peck is doing a fabulous job with this as well. So I don't have a problem with the Spock thing at all. I've completely bought into that. I agree with you though; it doesn't gel with what we're set up in Discovery. As I said, that's the problematic part, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not so much what this show is doing. Um, Anson Mount, obviously, he's a very different Pike to where the Jeffrey Hunter Pike was in the cage. But then again, he's moved on a few years. First thing I'll say, right, is let me tell you, man, I've got my hair quite long at the moment for continuity on a film that I'm doing that I've got to finish. But as soon as that's finished, I am totally getting an Anson Mount quiff, man. That hair is rocking. It looks
he's
awesome.
a he's a very good looking man. Yeah.
It looks awesome, doesn't it? It's like, wow, look at that hair. Okay, it's more grey now than it was, in season 2 of Discovery, but it's there's plenty of it, right?
Yeah.
But no, one of the things I'm really liking what they've done with the character here and what Anson Mount's done with it is we talked a lot about, or we have talked a lot about the problems with prequels. And when we were doing speculation about this show, we knew it was coming. We knew because of the success of these characters in at the end of Discovery season 2 that this show essentially got green lit on the back of that, and we knew it was coming. And we said one of the problems there is the fact that Pike knows his future. He knows where he's going to be at in the menagerie, right? 7 years later or 6 years later or whatever that is, right? But what I like is, whereas that's kind of a bad, that's one of the problems with prequels, and particularly, as I said, we got a character that knows his fate here. Okay, through a Klingon time crystal, which I still have a little bit of problems with all that, because but anyway, the stuff that Roddenberry and Ronald D. Moore and all that set up about the Klingons, I guess, was just part of it. We didn't know that they had, a monastery with time crystals and all of that as well. But anyway, but what I'm getting at here is the fact that they've lent into that. They've totally lent into the fact that Pike knows what his future's going to be, and it's given his character in this season a total arc, even though we haven't had storyline arcs, because this has been much more episodic, which we'll come on to, I'm sure. But there's definitely been character development throughout these 10 episodes, right? For many of the characters. And I really like the fact that they totally lent into it with Anson Mount in this show. And it also, in some respects, makes, again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit maybe because this relates to sort of the last episode, but it kind of makes what Spock does in the menagerie almost retrospectively make more sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You get to see the relationship develop for Pike as the father figure, and then Spock as the devotee.
Exactly.
Especially that last scene at the end of episode 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, I'm sorry, I'm probably jumping ahead a bit there, but then obviously Rebecca Romaine is Una Chin Riley, proper name and everything now, rather than just number one, which I believe is stuff that, again, they've borrowed from the expanded universe and the novels and stuff, because I believe there's been a number of Strange New World comics and novels over the, I say Strange New World, sorry, Captain Pike novels and comics over the years, and I believe the whole Una Chin Riley, or at least the Una part, was established in a previous novel. So again, they've taken something there. Obviously, she hadn't had much to do before this, with Majel Barrett playing her in the cage stroke the menagerie. But yeah, I mean, what's your feelings with number one?
Yeah, I really like Rebecca Romaine for the most part in this, right? Like, I did not love the Illyrian genetically modified storyline for a couple of reasons that maybe we'll get into later.
Yes.
Oh boy, I really didn't like the let's have fun, we're the fun ones now Star Trek bingo storyline that was like in one episode.
Yeah.
It just felt like I don't know why they're doing that to her. Yeah. So but when they didn't try and force storyline on her, I thought she played it perfectly. Like she was very much like the Una in the cage, which was almost machine-like, right? That sort of cold, logical part that then became part of Spock, and also you can see how that's very useful in a first officer. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, for sure. Again, good that they sort of managed to carry that role on. Obviously, as well, since this has aired and since we were last on, sadly, we lost Nichelle Nichols, who had been Uhura since the
Yeah.
original series, which is always sad as we gradually lose the original Star Trek actors. But it makes you realize how long that series was ago now. 56,
Yeah.
57 years or whatever it is now. But what do we think? Celia Rose Gooding as Cadet Uhura, obviously wearing a cadet badge like we saw Tilly had in Discovery, so a little bit of continuity there from that point of view. How are we feeling with her? Obviously, Zoe Saldana played her not long back in the Kelvin timeline stuff, but we've got her an alternate timeline, well, the prime timeline version here, but when she was much younger as a cadet. And yeah, I mean, I think this actress has been doing a fantastic job. Again, I've got no issue with the Uhura storyline. In fact, I think the fact that she's been given a storyline is long overdue, So
Yeah. Well, I think I totally agree. I think she's doing a great job with it. I think that the storyline they gave her is interesting and compelling, um, and sort of jives with the backstory that we've already gotten for Uhura. Um, and the I think the only thing I'd say is that um, early on, I think episode 2 or something, they they sort of put her life in danger, and I was like, well, her life's not in danger. Like, stop it.
yes,
That's stupid. Um, and so whenever they tried to assign those kind of stakes to the character, I was like, nope, you can't do that. That's the one thing you can't do with Spock or Uhura, right? Like,
yeah,
you you can't give them life and death stakes because we know that they survive.
yes,
Um, and so that was the only thing that I thought, was a bit of a misstep.
yes,
But I think that, getting to see her develop in some of the ways that we've seen Kirk develop in the alternate timeline, right? And like Spock continues to grapple with, was great. I really liked it.
yeah, cool. All right. Well, we also had more characters here that we'd seen before. Although, with a lot of these, I mean, it's fair to say, really, apart from Spock and Uhura, many of the other characters, I suppose, arguably Chapel as well, but they were very much secondary characters that didn't get a massive amount of screen time or character story in the original series and the movies, right?
Yeah, I will be honest. I missed that uh, Dr. Joseph Mbenga was in the original series. Look at that. Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah, he
missed
was,
that.
but only in a couple of episodes, literally a couple of episodes. But yeah, I think it's great that. Well, it sort of makes sense because that there was talk for a long time um, in the cage. Oh my God, this is where I should have had this screen up. In the cage, there was another doctor, wasn't there, whose name is completely. Hold on a second. I'm going to look it up because I like to be. Accurate with this, but basically, I know there was talk that long-time Star Trek um, alumni Jeffrey Combs. There was talk
Yeah.
that he was going to come back and play that character,
Oh
uh,
wow, awesome.
but obviously they decided to go a different route. Sorry, hold on a second. Sorry, I've not got. I should have looked this up beforehand. So, my bad. So
Dr.
I am.
Boyce, Phil
Yes, Dr.
Boyce.
Philip Boyce, who is played by John Hoyt, who was, an actor that was older than Jeffrey Hunter at the time. So you had the older Doctor character,
Yeah.
and I know there was a lot of. I don't know whether it was just a fan thing, but people were saying, uh, you, you know, would Jeffrey Combs or somebody like that come and play that character? But then again, I suppose it makes sense. This is a new mission. They've refreshed some of the crew. Dr. Boyce could have retired maybe, whatever.
Yeah.
And bringing Doctor and Benga in. It would make sense that by the time Kirk takes over the Enterprise, in 5 years' time or whatever it is for the next mission, that some of the crew would be carryovers, right, from that. So it's sort of, I think that sort of makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it totally does.
And I've really liked the arc that Doctor and Benga's had in this series as well. It's been wonderfully portrayed as well. So yeah, he's been killing it.
I hated the arc.
Sorry?
I hated the daughter in the.
Oh, did you? Okay, well, we'll come to that for sure. Okay.
That hit all of my nerd rage buttons. I hated it.
No, fair enough. Obviously, Majel Barrett also played after playing number one. In fact, we got two different actresses playing characters that she played in the original series. So she went on to be Nurse Chapel with the blonde hair. And we've now got Australian actress Jess Bush playing Christine Chapel. And again, I don't really have a problem with Chapel getting more fleshed out in this show. It makes sense, right?
Yeah, and I think that's one where they actually did the connection between TOS Chapel and Strange New Worlds Chapel very well, because in TOS there was always this sort of tension between Chapel and Spock, right? And so I liked it. Yeah, that's one that I kind of liked.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, she's been doing a great job. Interesting that they put her in the white uniform as opposed to the sort of blue which we're used to. Also, the other thing is, it's interesting that Delta badge doesn't have the Red Cross logo on it, because Chapel in the original series used to have that. Plus, in Discovery, they had the cross on the medical uniforms, but haven't done it here. So interesting. It's just got the Sciences logo. Sorry, I'm a bit of a uniform nerd, I'm afraid, but, which we'll get more into, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, we didn't really see. She was mentioned briefly in the Kelvin timeline, but we didn't really see a version of her. So this is really the only other version we've had. The movies and the TV series. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And the sort of connection with her and Spock, which was always somewhat implied in the original series, right? So yeah. Okay, the next one. How do we feel about this? So we have got Sam Kirk. So they had to, right in the first episode, they were saying, Lieutenant Kirk is joining us or whatever, and we're like, what? But it turns out that that's actually Jim Kirk's older brother.
I hated this one.
Did you? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, so like they have the big sort of like switcheroo, and that like the prank they play on the audience of Kirk is coming, and then Sam Kirk shows up. Is in at the very end of episode 1. And then honestly, I don't think you see Sam Kirk again until episode 8 or 9.
Well, he's in a couple of them. He's in the one where they find that monument in space that they have to sort of, Uhura has to sort of do harmonics with.
Okay, so that was the second one. But
and of course he's in the Alien Gorn episode where he's pretty much playing Hudson. Game over, man. Game over.
Which is episode 9.
Yeah.
and then he's there in episode 10, I think, just so that they can do the, oh, here's my brother Jim Kirk.
yes.
And so here's one where I was like, we get nothing from
Well,
having this be Kirk.
no, and there's also
Like,
another one that we know is fate, because obviously, as I've got a little
yeah,
picture there, William Shatner with a mustache plays a dead version of his brother in that episode. Is it Operation Annihilate? I think it might have
yeah,
been.
it's the one with the sucking things, right?
Exactly, and he finds him dead, and again, he finds him dead and is never ever mentioned again in any series or movie, even in Star
Yeah,
Trek V, when he says, "I haven't had a brother once, and I got him back." He's obviously referring to Spock.
yeah.
But yeah. So we've got the mustachioed kind of comic relief, but yeah, I don't know. Don't know about.
This
Put it
this
put it this
one
way.
was one that made me angry. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
put it this
like,
way. I don't. So I don't really know, because I don't have any siblings, right? Personally, but I have often thought of this. My God, if I was Jim Kirk's older brother, I'd hate to be Jim Kirk's older brother. You know what I mean? Just because Kirk is such a overachiever. It
yeah.
must have been hell growing up, But yeah, I don't know about that one. But and then something that pulled me out of the show a little bit, because it seemed a bit confusing. Okay, and again, it might just be a coincidence with a character name, but obviously, again, in the original series, we had Mr. Kyle, Chief Kyle, yeah, who was an English actor, English character, blonde hair, blue eyed. I actually joked with Vic Mugnana about Star Trek Continues, because I
Hmm.
said, "Oh, if you are ever allowed to bring it back and you need a Mr. Kyle, I might know someone that could do that." Hint, hint, hint. And obviously, unfortunately, that's a whole nother story. But can't do the
Yeah.
fan films anymore, which is a real shame. I'm trying to get Vic on again, by the way, on the show at some point to give his views on this. But we've got Andre Day Kim playing Chief Kyle. So this is, the essentially a race swap or an ethnicity move or whatever. But I don't know. I haven't got a problem with that, but I just found it a little bit confusing. I don't know whether, do you think it's supposed to be the same character, or is it just happens to be someone else with the same name?
I think it's supposed to be the same character.
Right. Okay. So what do you think of that then?
It makes no sense. It's again,
Yeah.
it it was one of those things where I'm like, well, what do we gain by having this?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, because
Nothing.
obviously that character was in the original series, and he turned up. We had a very brief role in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan as well.
Yeah.
He's on the Reliant. Is one of the commanders on the Reliant. But I don't know. It's kind of weird, because I just found it a bit jarring, and that's not that as I said, that's no slight at all on Andre Day Kim, who's doing a fine job and everything. It's just a little bit confusing that they changed the character radically, whereas everybody else with the casting, they've been very, close to the original, for obviously continuity reasons. But yeah, I wasn't sure, as I said, whether it was supposed to be the same character, or it just happened to be somebody doing a similar job with the same same name, but and a younger version. But oh
Yeah.
well, there we go. And then next up, I think it's one more slide with it. So, okay, so now we're getting into, well, 3 newish characters. And I say newish because even one of them has to be related to somebody again that's established that again in Space Seed.
Yeah.
Spock didn't raise one of his eyebrows about this at all. But well, we'll go left to right here. So we've got the character Erica Ortegas, played by Melissa Navia. I quite like this character. My only issue, and again, it's not with the performance, it's not with the actress, it's with the writing, is some of the snarky comments to Captain Pike. I'm sort of like, really? Yes, it makes me chuckle, and that's why it's put in, because it's there to make the audience chuckle. But again, because I take Star Trek quite seriously, I think, yeah, but in reality, if this was a future reality, you wouldn't be able to get away with making snarky comments to your commander, right?
No.
Kirk wouldn't have stood for that, right?
Yeah.
By the way, the other thing that I have a problem with here, again, sorry, bear with Keith's nerd alert here, but I have a real problem that she's wearing red, right? Because the helmsman, whether we're talking Mayweather in Enterprise or most certainly Sulu in the original series, wears the gold command color. The helmsman always wears the gold color. So I don't know why she's wearing red when she's the helms person of the Enterprise. That doesn't make any sense to me. Sorry,
that's interesting.
Nitpicky.
When
you think about it, Mayweather, his stripes that he had on his uniform were gold, and obviously Hikaru Sulu definitely wore gold in the original series, in the animated series. So surely she should be wearing gold, not red, right?
Yeah.
She's not security or engineering. And I know this whole costume things, uniform thing's always been different. Like in the first couple of episodes of the original series, Uhura was in gold before they put her in red. But so the whole uniforms thing never lines up anyway. But I just thought that was a bit odd.
Yeah, I also think that like the helmsman in Next Generation wore gold, not red. And there, like, red was the command color, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know.
So that's a little bit weird.
I just think that's a bit odd.
Yeah.
But still, that's a minor nitpick. I like as I said, I like the actress. I like what she's doing. At least it's an original character. So with this character, there are some stakes as to her fate in the show or whatever, which is great. As I said, some of the snarky comments that they've written, though, do make me raise an eyebrow occasionally. But she's doing a great job. So have you got any strong feelings on this one?
No, I totally agree. I think she's doing a great job. Like I said in my recap, it's like they never really got a chance to dig in very much, right? It was always just, here's the cool snarky person, you know?
Yeah, cool snarky person. Yeah, there is a bit of that snark to it for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's that character Ortegas, and then obviously we've got English actress Christina Chong playing Laan Noonien Singh, who's our security officer. I actually really like the character, but again, I just don't understand why they had to have somebody connected to the Khan and the eugenics wars and all of that sort of stuff. I really like her backstory with the Gorn stuff. I think that's
So
fine.
do I. I
Um,
think the Gorn stuff was her backstory, right? Like
yeah,
giving her the Sing stuff, just like I don't know, it felt like a hat on a hat, right? Like
yeah,
it didn't add anything. It was just something else that we had to be like, oh right. Um, Especially when they're going to introduce the Illyrian genetically modified storyline. It just felt superfluous.
yeah, yeah. I thought so as well. Um, but I like everything she did. I like the I like the fact that it's an original character. That's great. But as I said, being nitpicky, I just wish that the Noonien Singh part wasn't part of it. I wish there was no connection to that whatsoever, because that just
Absolutely.
that just feels like a bit of fan service, sort of a member berry thing. It doesn't really serve anything. If
Yeah.
anything, it causes a continuity issue, if you
Yeah.
want to look at it like that. But
No, it does.
yeah, yeah. But as I said, I like her backstory with the Gorn, and I like her character, and she makes a great security chief. So that all works really well. Um,
Yeah.
but as I said, it's just again a connection there. And then of course we get our chief engineer Einar character, which of course were introduced in Enterprise once again, the Einar, right?
Yep.
Called
Yeah.
Hemmer, who is played by Bruce Horrick, who is vision impaired in real life as well, I believe.
Yeah.
And I really like this character, and I don't really understand why they did what they did with this character. I'm like, why?
I I love this character. This is the most interesting character on the show for me.
Yeah,
You know, they didn't do tons with him, but like I felt like in lots of little episodes, he got little moments that built up his character. You knew who he was. And it was a compelling character. And so then they killed him in episode 9, and I was like, well, that was a waste.
well, yeah. I
You
mean, I know
just
he's
killed
got.
off your best character.
I know he's wearing a red shirt. But come on, that's because he's the chief engineer. But
Yeah.
yeah, I, I mean, the one thing I will say is I never saw it coming at all. So it was kind of a brave choice. It was a more satisfying than like a Tasha Yar type death, because obviously he gave his life to help them and stuff. But it just felt unnecessary. I was like, we've got an interesting character here, played, well played by this actor. And I almost feel like it's just done to make way for the possibility of Montgomery Scott being reimagined in the next season, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I was disappointed to see him go.
So was I. So was
I,
I.
I felt there was a lot more they could have done there, and again, of the 3 or 2.5 original characters that we got, they've gone and got rid of one of them. But
Well, and they sort of said Noonien Singh was going to go off and find her own way, and she might come back, she might not.
yeah, I hope she does. I mean, I wonder whether that was a little bit of because of what they did with her in the next episode, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I think this is the last one I've got on cast, because I realized we've gone on quite a lot on this, but I do think it's an interesting topic. So I've absolutely loved the whole T'Pring storyline and what Gia Sandhu is doing with the role. And again, good casting, because I've got her there next to T'Pring we see in a mock time from the original series.
Yeah.
But again, it gives that whole thing a bit more weight, right? Because suddenly Yeah?
Mm,
No? Oh, okay.
I disagree.
Oh,
I
good.
don't.
Good. Disagree. Come on, tell me why.
I got nothing out of adding to bring to this storyline. Like
Right.
all I came away with were questions. Um, and when she was in the first episode and introduced as Spock's fiance, I was like, okay, well that's weird, right? They're gonna have to make them not like each other eventually because that's how it was in Amok Time.
Yeah. We know
Um,
she's going to go off with that dude, right? They actually show the guy, don't they? The one from a
yeah.
time is.
Um, and so then they brought uh, to bring back in I think a couple episodes, but there's the body switch episode, um, and all I could think was like this just feels kind of like a waste. I felt like they were just um, pushing towards splitting them up, and um, and so it felt very forced, and and so I was like, well, why are they doing this? Just to force this character to the end point that we already know she was at,
Hmm.
right? Like, I didn't get it. It, I feel like there had to be other ways to do this, even if and also like there had to be ways to just not do it,
Okay.
um, because I don't think it added very much.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's. I think obviously it's to try and flesh out the sort of Spock backstory, but also I also think that between Ethan Peck and, as I said, this actress who's Gia Sandhu, let's be honest, they're both quite attractive, and I think
Yeah,
it's to give a bit of a sexy vibe to the show. Do you know what I mean?
sure. So instead of what everyone complains about Enterprise and Voyager to some extent is that they just made the hot lady.
Yes.
Here it's like, well, to give this cast a hot lady, we're gonna make her a supporting cast member instead
Yeah.
of a reoccurring or regular. Like it again, it frustrated me as like I it's not a good enough reason.
Fair enough. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've quite enjoyed that part of the show. But maybe for the wrong reasons. Who knows? But
Yeah.
and I thought the casting was good here as well. I think it kind of made sense from that point of view. But again, I suppose, yeah, looking at it objectively and with criticism, once again, it's another character that is already established. Yeah, we already know where they're
Yeah.
going. So, yeah, there is that. But she was in a few episodes. I also thought, we need to mention the fact that we've got. I know we talked about this briefly on the news section of one of our Picard episodes, but we've got now Admiral Robert April, played by Adrian Holmes, in this show. Obviously, appearance wise, this character did appear in the animated series, voiced by James Doohan, in the animated series, and in the sort of chronology that came out sort of in the 90s or whatever for Star Trek, they had a picture of Robert April, and it was actually Gene Roddenberry on the set of The Cage wearing one of the command uniforms, sat in the captain's chair, and they kind of made that sort of beta canon at the time that's that was who Robert April was like Gene Roddenberry. But obviously, you know, they've swapped that here. I don't think it really matters in this case. You know, for this character, I think it works. I mean, Adrian Holmes is a really good actor. And you know, yeah, he was the original captain of the Enterprise, and a bit of a mentor with for Pike. I did like, there was one line he said, which always made me laugh. Again, they were trying to sort of get the continuity right, and they were referring to General Order 1. And he goes, yeah, they're talking about calling it the Prime Directive. And he goes, that'll never stick. That amused me. And then I don't know. So we get Paul Wesley as James T. Kirk here. But it's not, I mean, it will be in season 2, a younger James T. Kirk, like Chris Pine did in the Star Trek movies. But when we see him in this show, it is literally James T. Kirk from the Balance of Terror era.
Yeah.
So it's literally, you know, Shatner when he was at his absolute best, if you like, right?
Yeah.
I don't, you know, I mean, yeah, I don't know. What did you think about this? It was kind of, it was quite jarring, but yeah.
Okay, so this is real interesting because I think that this one I actually really liked.
Okay.
And so it sounds like we're on opposite sides here, but I thought that he did a great job of being of sort of playing up the differences between Kirk and Pike,
yes.
Right? And so obviously it is an alternate timeline where Pike remained in control of the Enterprise and never suffered, you know, his debilitating condition. And so Pike continued the Enterprise mission on and lived his life, which meant that Kirk couldn't become the captain of the Enterprise and was instead the captain of the Farragut, right? And what I liked was I thought you saw a lot of that sort of Kirk moxie in this character, in this portrayal. And you got it juxtaposed with Anson Mount's Pike doing his sort of elder statesman father figure routine. And so I loved it. I thought it was a great sort of exploration of what it means to be or the different ways that you can be a captain.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I was relieved that he didn't try and do a you know, Shatner impression or anything like that. But you know, he is so different. You know, so is Chris Pine, but because that was kind of an alternate timeline, and he grew up without his father and a kind of different backstory, I sort of had no problem sort of buying Pine as a young Shatner. But for some reason, I mean, I think it was because he's supposed to literally be playing him at the same age and the same point in a different timeline, but the same year or whatever. Yeah, it was a little bit jarring for me. But I mean, I don't know Paul Wesley. I've not seen the Vampire Diaries. That wasn't a show I followed. I know he's very
likewise
on that. But yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know, because I did watch Balance of Terror again when I saw this episode. I sort of watched them back just as I did with Amok Time and Spock Amok or whatever it was called, and I kind of checked them out. The other thing, and again, this is a nitpicky, uniformy type thing, but it was weird. He's the captain of the Farragut, but he had the Delta symbol, and I thought the ships at this point were supposed to have different logos, like we saw the guy at the Starbase, didn't we?
Yeah.
What was his name? Hansen. Yeah. which again they used a different actor. In fact, one of the things I did like with the, we got it with the Romulans and some of the other characters that would have appeared before, and I actually sort of appreciated the fact that back in the 60s they would have been played by some jobbing white character actor. Yeah, but they decided now to put a bit more diversity into that, and I didn't necessarily have a problem with that for some of the smaller roles that don't rely on the continuity so much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally agree.
And I mean, I know there were other characters as well that I've not put up here. We had Jennifer Hoy played Ensign Christina, which is seen quite a bit in the show. Sat next to Ortegas on the bridge at the helm at the navigator's spot. There was Melanie Scrofano played Captain Battelle, who obviously was in the first and last episode. Another Starfleet captain that's kind of, has a fling with Pike. So there are a few other regular characters that have appeared in the show as well. But I did figure we would be here all night if I tried to break down everyone.
Yeah.
So what else have I got here? Forgive me, I did. Okay, so design. We touched a little bit on this already. The Enterprise. I think we said back when we were talking at Discovery that we liked the fact that like the bridge and the interiors of the Enterprise are quite faithful, although much more updated. And with the exterior, they've made it, as I said, they've gone for that more sort of gunmetal grey, and obviously the red nacelles, and then the gold radar dish, the gold dish on it. In fact, I tell you what it really reminded me of. Back in the 90s, Franklin Mint did an Enterprise model that was kind of in that pewter colour, and it had a gold radar and red nacelles. Yeah, because one of my flatmates at the time was a massive Star Trek fan, and had loads of stuff, and he actually had that, and it even appeared in that episode, I think it First Duty or whatever, with Wesley when he gets in trouble in the Next Gen at Starfleet Academy, and it's on his desk is one of those models.
Yeah.
But, it looked very much like that. But I don't know, is this the sort of, I mean, it looks, the visual effects in this are fantastic. They look amazing. Have you got any issues with the design change from your point of view?
My biggest issue was with the interiors.
Okay.
All of the interior quarters were gigantic.
Yes.
And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I just thought, the scope of this Enterprise in terms of relative size is minuscule, right? Or much smaller compared to the Galaxy class starships.
Yeah.
Of Next Generation. Am I being too nerdy now?
No,
but
I mean, that's the point of this show, right?
Yeah. When
people would have tuned out long ago, man.
I felt like even like all of the scenes, if they ever had a scene just in a hallway, I was like, this hallway is way too big.
Yeah.
Right. And Captain Pike's quarters, I were like ridiculously large. And then they go to Spock's quarters, and they are huge. And I was like, hey, Spock is not even the first officer, right? Like,
yeah,
he would not have gigantic quarters like that.
Yeah, because they've
Pike would not be able to have a built-in kitchen.
No, I mean, they have actually changed the sets, haven't they, from the ones we did see at the end of Discovery, and I actually think the ones they had at the end of Discovery were more on point, actually.
More on point.
They went more with the sort of grey and orange
Yeah.
aesthetic and all that. And again, Pete, I'll go back to, this is why in my head I try and look at this as a evolution from Enterprise rather than a, which obviously one of the things, Enterprise used to get criticized massively for continuity and everything, but let's be honest, one of the things they did really well in Enterprise was you could tell that ship was way smaller, right? They made it like a submarine inside, and the quarters, even the captain's quarters, were tiny.
Tight.
And all this, Scott Bakula had to bow his head sometimes to get to one side of the room and all this. I agree. This almost implies, like, the Kelvin timeline Enterprise was supposed to be a much bigger Enterprise because of the the whole Nero battle and all of that sort of thing, and they changed the tech and all of this sort of thing, and it kind of made sense in that regard because it was a totally different timeline and all of this. But as I said, if this is supposed to be the Enterprise that Kirk ends up on, then yes, it's definitely bigger on the inside.
It's so much bigger. And that, as that was one of my nerd rage buttons that got pushed.
Yeah,
lot.
I say that on one hand about like quarters and corridors and all of that sort of thing. Yet on the other hand, things like the bridge and the turbo lift and the Jeffries tubes and whatever, they've got absolutely spot on, haven't they?
Well, they didn't always have people holding the handrails on the turbo lifts.
I thought that like when Mbenga comes in, he did do that. He twists the handrail, right, and says bridge. No, did I miss that?
It was not uniform, I thought. I don't know. Maybe I should watch it again.
Maybe. No, you might be right. I have to add, actually, something I should have probably caveated at the beginning. So far, I've only had the chance to watch each episode once when it aired, when it dropped, and I'd watch it. I do plan at some point. It's just been rather busy, and there is a lot of stuff to watch at the moment. But I do plan on going back and watching the whole series again because I really want to. But I have only watched this once, so my memory of some of these things. This is why I wish we were doing the deep dive every week, because
absolutely
that would have been great. But that's the ship. Of course, sorry, Pete, I've got to talk about uniforms.
I was thinking about it.
So I've just kind of got a cross section there of various uniforms. I have to say, for me, I like these slightly redesigned uniforms. They're closer to the original series, and they are kind of a mixture of the two designs that you had over those Kelvin movies. You had the design of the first two, and then by the time Star Trek Beyond came, they'd updated them slightly again, and this kind of bridges that gap and does it quite well, I think. I don't know. Have you got thoughts on the uniforms? I'm quite happy with them.
I thought that they did a lot of stuff that felt like making them cool, so like the away missions were always like leather jackets, it feels like.
Okay though, but to be fair, I've got a picture in the middle there from the cage, and one of the things that was unique about the cage compared to the rest of the original series is they did have away jackets that were grey. They weren't leather, admittedly. But again, sorry I keep harking on about this, but I look at this as an evolution of the away jackets that they had in Enterprise.
Yeah. Good point.
I actually quite like the jackets, I've got to say.
It just felt like them trying to be cool to me.
Of course
they also I was happy when they put Pike in green.
Yes, we got the wraparound. Yeah. Although interestingly, it had the delta on the breast as well as on the buckle.
On the side.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was good to see Anson Mount in the green wraparound. I mean, again, technically, I know we've gone back to the primary, you know, the red, blue, and gold.
Yeah.
But in Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot, they were still doing the sort of blue and beige and green, you know, like on that picture there on the top left of the screen. So again, it's kind of, you know, whatever. And one of the things actually looking at the away teams there is I did like the fact that the terminology, they were referred to as landing parties, which of course is very original series, right?
Oh yeah, I missed that, but that was good.
I think the away team was kind of a next gen era term, you know, vernacular or whatever for the term, if you like, for the
yeah. Oh, and you know what you don't have here is we've got the Pike in the what is it, the Wrath of Khan formal uniform.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, I didn't get a chance to put that on, but yes, I was happy to see that.
I really like that too. I thought
I'm guessing that was Pike sort of 15 years or so into the future, which would make sense. Again, they still had to update it slightly with the you know, the design across the shoulders and down the arms and everything, but essentially it was nearly the same as the Wrath of Khan, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I recognized it immediately and was like, "Oh, nice."
Yeah, it made sense. It totally made sense. And I do like. I mean, they've kind of replaced the mini skirt, mini dress thing from the 60s with a sort of hybrid of that and the, you know, with leggings, haven't they, and a zip, you know, which Una's kind of wearing there in the middle. So again, it's kind of and once again in things like the Cage and Where No Man Has Gone Before, I mean, most of the crew did wear you know, a standard uniform of the department colored shirt with the, you know, gray pants and black boots. So again, all of that kind of makes sense in the big scheme of things. But I did like the fact they kind of did a little bit of a hybrid there, sort of in between. So it's not quite the mini dress that you know, Nichelle Nichols is wearing there in that picture, but it kind of evokes that, doesn't it? And I think actually in the last episode, Celia Rose Gooding, that Uhura has a uniform very similar. It's a similar sort of neckline and whatever to what Nichelle Nichols wore, right? So they actually
that one did not make an impression on me, but okay.
Right. I also noticed, because of course I noticed these things, they've updated the communicators and phasers to look much more like the original series, whereas before they were trying to sort of, in Discovery, they were trying to sort of bridge the gap from the Cage type lasers as they were then, and the sort of Enterprise phase pistol, and they were sort of doing something. But again, that makes sense because, you know, the technology was always evolving, and they always did this in Star Trek, didn't they? They were always updating uniforms and props all the time because what is it? Because engineers, they love to change things, as McCoy said, but it's true. But yeah, I you know, top marks to the costume design on this and the production design, because I think that they've struck a happy balance between making this newer and more contemporary, but also, you know, matching, if you like, looking at a picture of the crew from the original show and it evoking that same look as well. So I thought they did it. And I have to say, I preferred these, the fit wise, I'm sure the actors did as well. I preferred it to the Discovery uniforms that had been changed to the colors of the TOS uniforms, which is what we had in the in that second season of Discovery. Yeah. God, we've gone way nerdy. Or should I say we? I've gone way nerdy tonight. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So
no. I take responsibility. I think we can also say that the what is it, the fairy tale episode. Oh, I like the other camera layout better. Do you?
Oh, do you? Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm playing with it. There we go.
You like this one least?
No, it's fine. It's because I've had slides up, so it's changed. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm self-conscious that I'm on my cell phone, so my aspect ratio is different than yours. Welcome to Nerdy Talk.
No. We're talking of aspect ratios. This whole show was in the whole 235:1 aspect ratio, as opposed to the 4:3. So again, the bridge had to be wider from that point of view.
But yeah, the space didn't feel right.
All right. So shall we briefly then go through the episodes and our thought? I mean, how do you want to play? This is as much your show as mine, Pete. I've not, other than those slides, I didn't have anything else prepared. So I didn't have time to go into Easter eggs and all of that stuff, for the...
Okay, so I do have. I gotta reposition and get my notes out here.
Okay.
Because I started looking up uniforms, but okay. So I had 2 Easter eggs. I don't know, the whole thing is Easter eggs, right? But I think there's 2 that maybe we want to touch on. And one is in the 10th episode, which is just like Balance of Terror from a different viewpoint, right?
Yes.
Did you catch they had Scotty in that episode?
Yes. Yeah. You hear him, right? And he just
and you see a hand.
A tool or whatever to Spock. But oh no, absolutely. I mean, it's almost, I'm wondering if that's why Hemmer's gone, which I think is a shame. But I'm wondering if it's because they essentially want to reimagine Scotty, and apparently, according to the in those novels and stuff, those Captain Pike novels, Scotty did serve on the Enterprise before Kirk came on board as captain. So so that's quite possible. But I did pick up on that. There was the other thing I picked up on in that episode, actually, which I liked. Again, if you get too continuity focused on it, it doesn't totally make sense. But when older Pike is with younger Pike in the quarters, he picks a picture off of the mantelpiece, and it's of Robert April handing the Enterprise over to Captain Pike. And the attention to detail is good because they darkened Anson Mount's hair to look more like Jeffrey Hunter. Yeah. Plus, they were wearing the original Cage uniforms.
Oh, nice.
Which, if short treks are canon, that doesn't quite make sense, because obviously we see Ensign Spock arrive on the Enterprise for the first time, and Una meets him, and of course they've got the Discovery type original series uniforms at that point. So, but hey, it was a nice little detail, a nice little Easter egg that I thought was good. But yeah.
And we get reference to Star Trek 5, right? And Cyborg.
Well, that was a big thing. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, that's obviously going to come back at some point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is going to come back. And actually, I mean, I'm not opposed to that, because I think that I one time shared an elevator with Lawrence Luckenbill, and I did just get to say, "Hey, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm in an elevator with you, but huge fan, right? Huge Star Trek fan. Thanks." And he was like, nicest man in the world, and started getting into Star Trek talk with me.
I was going to say, did he show you your pain and tell you to come and find Shukkery with him? No.
But I wish I remembered exactly what he said, because I was like awestruck, but he in like 30 seconds broke down Star Trek 5 in ways that made it so much more enjoyable than I remember from actually watching it. Um, and I think he compared it to Hamlet or like a
Yeah.
Shakespearean drama, and I was always like, oh wow, and so that little nugget has stuck with me, and so I have always thought that like yeah the you know Star Trek Five gets a lot of flack because what does God need with the starship? But I think there is also like storyline there that could be interesting and
Yeah.
could be compelling. And so if they got into that, like it does sort of wreak havoc on continuity. And from that perspective, I think I would kind of hate it. But I do think that there's interesting story that could be there. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, he had a he has a sister that he can't talk about.
yeah,
So yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought it was nice that Star Trek Five got referenced for once because it is an official film in the series, isn't it?
yeah,
It's not without its problems, admittedly, but then again, I it's better than that. That's better than some stuff we've had, So
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like, um, yeah. So and I've got to talk about. Well, I say talk about. So obviously, there's too many. Normally, I talk about the directors and writers and all of this stuff, and there's kind of too many across the show. But I mean, oh, by the way, sorry, I keep messing with my hair. It's long and it's annoying me, and I just want my Captain Pike quiff.
yeah,
But no, but we've got this is credited as being created by Akiva Goldsman, Alex Kurtzman, and Jenny Lumet, all of which have worked on the previous Star Trek shows. But I have to say, writing on this has been pretty good, I think. I know we criticised some of the writing on both Picard and Discovery, where they got off to a good start, but didn't really stick the landing and stuff. And what I'm thinking is interesting here. Some could say it's a step backwards. I don't know, but the episodic nature, the planet or problem of the week or monster of the week or whatever it is, bloody works for Star Trek, doesn't it? It works, and I think what they've done here is they've done that like they did with Next Gen and hold on a second. Well, I've got an alarm going off for some reason. Don't know why that is. Sorry, but they've done that like they did with Next Gen and whatever. But the important thing is, whereas in the original series, like you said, Kirk mentions he has a brother, and then it's never mentioned again, or he's in love with Edith Keeler, and then she dies, but then the next week it's like it never happened, and all of this sort of thing. Yeah. But here, the character stuff carries through, doesn't it? So even though we've got our individual story of the week, that difference between plot and character, we've got a different plot each week, but the character arc stuff carries on through, right? Oh, I've lost you. Oh dear, and I can't stop recording. So there you go. This is what happens sometimes, folks, when we're dealing with something that's streamed over the internet. Is sometimes people's signals drop out and we lose them. Either that, or I was totally boring Pete, which is quite possible as well, because I listen to myself sometimes and think, God. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying the show. This gives me the opportunity, while I'm waiting for Pete to come back, to say, please do check out the other work on this channel. There's cover, it's not just Star Trek. We cover many shows. As I said, we've done some of the Marvel shows, some of the Star Wars shows. We've talked about various films, different franchises. Also, I talk about physical media on this channel. In fact, here's Picard on Blu-ray. I've talked about the Star Wars film, or Star Trek films, and the Star Wars films on Blu-ray. So yeah, check all of that out. Oh, Pete's back. Hey, Pete.
Sorry.
That's all right. I was doing filler while you were gone. I was promoting the channel and telling the listener or the viewer to check out some of the other work, etc., etc. So don't worry, I did filler.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, you bent over and I thought it was you, and so I was just waiting, and then I was like, "Oh no, it's my internet. My internet crapped out."
Yeah. I was I don't know how much of it you caught before I lost you, but I was talking about the sort of episodic...
I lost you when you went for your...
Oh, I've lost you again, Pete. Oh dear. Pete's frozen on me. It's an ion storm. There you go. So much. Are you back? Is he back? Oh, Pete.
It's an ion storm.
It is an ion storm. Yes. Can't use the transporters. If you like, you could go to maybe just audio. Oh, hold on. What's happened here? You're back. Oh, no, you're not. You've gone.
No, I just took it off audio because you said go to just...
Oh, yeah. I was thinking, well, that might work better.
Yeah.
Until your signal comes back.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Hey,
yeah.
This is, we're not live, but you still record as if it's a live show. So, these things happen. I was trying to fill in, as I said, about the show.
Yeah. Let's see if this is more stable for a minute, and if it is, I'll turn my video back on. But okay. I heard you. I heard everything right up until you had an alarm go off. So, but now I've forgotten because of panic what you were saying.
Right. No, I was just saying about how I think this
episodic.
Yeah, I was saying it's the difference between plot and character, and with this we've got individual plots, but the character stuff still follows through. So it's kind of a nice hybrid of, what they didn't do in the original series was so they could play those in any order. There weren't any sort of consequences that would carry over for the characters necessarily. Obviously, Enterprise played with this in the third season, having story arcs, and of course, Deep Space Nine did it, and arguably some of Next Gen did it. I mean, you had family right after Best of Both Worlds and stuff like that. So it's not that they've never done it, but they've never really done it to this level. And one of the frustrations with those ongoing stories that we had in Discovery and we had in Picard was, by the time you got to, they were trying to do it in 10 or 12 episodes or whatever. And by the time you got to the penultimate episode, it either ran out of steam or there was a shitload of stuff to get sorted in one episode, in 1 hour, and the pacing leaves something to be desired, I think, on some of those. Whereas I thought with this, the pacing of the episodes was very good, and they didn't just drop stuff. So like the Mbenga storyline, for example, it did carry into the next episode, even if it wasn't an Mbenga-centric episode, right?
Yeah, or even the Una being genetically engineered.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
They carried stuff through. I will say, like, if I'm being nitpicky, I wish the Mbenga episode hadn't fully resolved in the one episode that it did resolve, and then they never mentioned it again. Like I would have loved if they could have gone back to that nebula.
Right. Yeah. I mean, which they still might, by the way, in a
Yeah,
future.
they still might. Yeah.
But Mbenga did in the following episode, when they, you know, the one with the Gorn running around, the aliens type one, he does, when they meet that girl, he does actually call her his daughter's name, doesn't he, at one point, and has to correct himself.
Yeah.
Which again is a little thing, but at least
Right. Yeah.
at least they used it. But do you want to? I mean, shall we go through the briefly? I mean, I'm conscious we've been going for about an hour and 40 already. Like I said, we could have had
I
10
think
hours
if we try to
plus.
go through, if we try to go through each episode, I think we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah,
Especially with my internet now apparently acting up. So
yeah.
maybe if we're looking at what do we normally hit, right? Is it time for some thoughts about what season 2 might carry over?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Have you got any immediate thoughts that spring to mind for you then?
Yeah, I and maybe this is like part of like what I feel about the series as a whole, right? But I think that what I would love to see is they sort of like started playing with this theme of responsibility and doing what's right, and when do you do what's right, and when do you bend the rules. And I think that they sort of really looked at that also with the last episode about what's the difference between a Captain Pike and a Captain Kirk. Um, and I will say that's one of the things that made me really angry is when Pike decided to let Una off and not put into his report that she was genetically modified. I thought that was just the wrong decision. Um, and so that made me really, really angry during that episode. But then uh, when the chicken came home to roost and they marched her off the ship in episode 10, I was like, oh, this might actually now start going somewhere good because you can start to reckon with when should we do the right thing, when do we not do the right thing, and what are the consequences of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that plays into uh, uh, going to hit one of my buzzwords here, but like Roddenberry Star Trek, it plays into that when Roddenberry is talking about the evolution of the human race, right? And so I think we can start to play with those themes in season 2. And if that's what they're doing, I'm 100% there.
Yeah.
Uh, in terms of other sort of predictions, I do think we're going to get the Noonien Singh character back, and
Oh, yeah.
that's also going to play into that. I think we do need a new which makes me sad. But I would love to see more Andorians. I'll say that. I don't know that we're going to get more Andorians, but I would really love more Andorians.
Yeah. No,
How
absolutely.
about you?
I wholeheartedly agree with you about the whole consequences thing. Again, it's a little bit like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, right? Because
Yeah.
that's essentially what Pike was telling his younger self. Spock in the bigger picture, in the galaxy-wide picture, is more important because you know he's involved with the unification with Romulus. He's involved with creating the Kelvin timeline. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's involved in so many things of historic note, and obviously, if they took that path that he's shown there, then Spock would be the one in the wheelchair, um,
Yeah.
communicating through beeps or whatever. and not Pike. And we know that even though Pike knows this fate is coming, and he knows he's going to save the lives of these cadets in the process, but it's going to, debilitate him to that level. But we actually know that he gets a happy ending, because of course then the menagerie happens. So we know he's going to be okay from that point of view. But yeah, I think the fact they lent into that, and that he knows his fate. I'm still a little bit. The way he knows his fate is still a bit, the Klingon crystal, time crystal things. I'm still
hated it. Yeah,
that's obviously a carryover from Discovery, but I'm like, don't know. But let's be honest. At this point, it's a plot device. It's a MacGuffin, right? So,
it was a MacGuffin, right? Like the only thing that I can think is like, well, how many times did the original series just time travel for no reason, right? Like, you got to let that go.
yep.
They did pick the worst way to continue it. Like from my perspective, if I was a writer, I literally just would have had another magic time traveling nebula come along versus a Klingon time crystal. But what are you going to do?
Yeah. And it's interesting because Pike in that last episode kind of became like Guinan in yesterday's Enterprise, in the fact that he's the only one that's aware of that possible future. Or I know it was a possible present in in yesterday's Enterprise, but it was still, that kind of thing. And I liked all of that. I did like the it was definitely one for the fans by putting, Balance of Terror is arguably one of the best episodes. By the way, something I wondered if they were going to do, and I'm glad they didn't, because it would have been a rubbish thing continuity-wise, but it would have been definitely a fan-winky moment, is when they showed the Romulan commander, I thought to myself, oh, they're not going to have James Frain playing him, are they? Which I'm glad they didn't. For anyone that might be wondering what we're talking about, this is the actor that played Sarek in Discovery. And the only reason I say that is Mark Leonard, before he was cast as Sarek, not Savick, that's another character, Sarek, in the original series, actually did play the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror.
Yeah.
Back where they recycled the same actors and said, oh, he looks pretty good with pointy ears, so we'll use him. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad they didn't, but I did sort of wonder, are they gonna go there?
That would have been like Pietro level casting.
Yeah,
hilariousness.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been. I'm glad they didn't, but instead we get the guy from Galaxy Quest, which again is slightly problematic when you think that Galaxy Quest is a parody of Star Trek, right?
Wait, I missed that. Which actor was it?
I think. Let me hold on a second. Let me check. Let me Keith check my facts before I go off on this one, because I might be wrong. Whilst I'm looking that up, just carrying on with another point you made, the genetic thing with Una, kind of that had a little bit of a vibe of the Julian Bashir, with the it had a little bit of a vibe of that. But hold on one second. I'm just looking up this actor.
Oh, I'm trying to look it up too. I'll race you.
I might be wrong, but I thought it. So it was the Romulan commander, wasn't it? Matthew McFadzean. Now, was he in Galaxy Quest, or is that just that he looked like? It might be. I might have completely got that wrong, actually.
No, it's all right. It'd be a hilarious connection.
No, no,
if it was.
yeah, he just looked a bit like him, but no, I think I'm completely talking out of my ass. So, yeah, no, it's not.
Matthew Barassa? No. Who was it?
No, it would have been Matthew McFadzean.
McFadden.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no,
Interesting.
I'm completely wrong. Sorry. I just when I first saw him, I thought, oh, is that the dude from? But no. But anyway, yeah, those recastings were fine. I didn't have a problem with any of that actually.
No,
Um,
and you said you watched Balance of Terror, and so did
I did.
I.
Yes.
Right? Because I thought like, oh, this is such an interesting idea to revisit, right, a story, uh, but from to totally retell a TOS episode uh, from a different point of view and doing it like this, where it's an alternate reality. I loved it. I thought it really hit all the marks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I did as well. I really enjoyed that. As I said, I enjoyed most episodes. Some were more of. I mean, what I think they did as well was we had the complete spectrum of Star. Because let's be honest, there are all sorts of different types of Star Trek episodes. Um, there's more serious space battle-y or survival type ones, and then there are more comedic alternate reality ones. There's all sorts, right? And
Yeah,
I thought across the season we got quite a good balance of those different types of story, and some I preferred more than others, but overall there was nothing I outright hated. Even the ones I thought I wasn't going to like surprised me. Like, for example, Spock and Mock. I thought, I don't know whether I'm going to like this. And I actually thought it was a great episode,
oh
and really worked. I mean, yes, they did the whole Freaky Friday trope that, of course, we've had in Star Trek numerous times. We've had it
yeah,
in Voyager, haven't we? With Seven and the Doctor. We obviously had it in the original series in the last episode with
yeah,
Kirk and the woman. I remember Smallville's done this. Loads of shows have done that whole Freaky Friday trope. But I thought that was a lot of fun, and it's funny actually because the one episode I didn't think I was going to like at all was the Elysian Kingdom, because it was the costume or
yeah,
all the actors having way too much fun playing these crazy versions of the characters and stuff. But that
yeah,
turned out to be the most moving episode of, I know some think it's a bit saccharine and a bit schmaltzy and whatever, but I found the storyline with Mbenga and his daughter, it brought me to tears. I'm not going to lie, that
mm,
show did. So again, it surprised me. I didn't think I was going to like that, and it surprised me. Episode 9 was definitely my jelly. I absolutely loved
yeah.
it. I was just sad that we lost Hemmer in the process. Was sad, but again, I was obviously quite invested in that character to feel like that. But yeah, across the board here, Memento Mori or Morai, Memento Mori, is that how that's pronounced?
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting episode. Yeah, there's as I said, we will be here all night if we go through all of them. I
If
feel
we
like
go through all of them, yeah.
stretched
And I will
the,
say,
you know,
like, I think I made the point, but some of these episodes did not work for me as well as they did for you. But I will say, like, in every episode, I found something that I liked. Uh, it's just that in some episodes, I found stuff that I really didn't like.
right.
So the Freaky Friday Spock, Spock Amok episode, I hated it. Um, the fantasy episode, uh, uh, I was glad that they resolved Mbenga's daughter, but I didn't love it. And I thought that they could have done it differently. Um, but yeah, I think I've also hit all my big nitpicks. Do you have other nitpicks that you want to hit?
I'm sure there's loads still to say, but I am conscious that we can't spend too much time on that. I'm sure we'll come back to it. What I will say, as far as first seasons go for Star Trek, this is probably one of the strongest first seasons since the original series.
I have to completely agree. I think this does tie in, and we should give this a ranking.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what? Are we doing it like the old ranking system where captain is the highest rank in this case? Yeah. And
4 pips would be captain. Yeah.
Yeah. Or stripes now. Stripes, isn't it?
No, I'm still going pips.
Yeah, we'll still do pips. What, for the season overall?
Season overall.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy. I'm for pipping it, I think. I really, really, really every week was not let down, and I couldn't wait to the next week to watch the next episode. As I said, I feel robbed that we haven't been able to do the deep dive every week, because I would have loved to have done that. Hopefully, well, now I've got Paramount Plus. Now it's here in the UK. Season 2, we can absolutely do that up for.
Absolutely, we'll do it for season 2, because my ranking would be 3 pips. I would give this a commander.
Yeah,
which is I think the highest ranking that we talked about.
Sorry, Pete, you've broken up a bit again, I'm afraid. Pete?
I'll leave it.
Oh, lost you.
3 pips.
Oh, 3 pips. Okay, I got that bit. Yeah. I lost what you were saying around it, unfortunately. But
I was just being long-winded. I'll just say, I'll give it 3 pips. I think it's a good, strong, and I agree, best first season of Star Trek in a long time.
Yeah. No, I'm really, really happy. Really happy. Well, listen, we're nearly at 2 hours. Technical difficulties aside, yes, there's a lot more we could talk about here, but I think maybe we should wrap that up for now. If you want to get in touch and open a channel with us, you've obviously found this channel already, Home Media Minefield. So please do follow us on social media. Feel free to put comments down below. If you strongly agree or disagree with us or whatever, everything's welcome as far as that's concerned. You can email the show directly at lswotcast@gmail.com. That's let's see what's out there cast@gmail.com. And you can also follow us at LSWOTcast on social media. Pete, where can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on Twitter at Too Many E's. Please do. And cool. How about you, Keith? Where can people find you?
Yeah, well, if you want to see the other work that I've done, I've got another YouTube channel called British Isles, which is EYLES, as in my last name. And you can see some short films that I've made there. You can obviously, as I said, find more content here and also on our podcast as well from previous seasons of Star Trek on that. I also want to thank Neil Myers for our wonderful theme music. More of Neil's work can be found at neilmyersmusic.com. So yeah, that just leaves me really to thank you, Pete, for joining us for this delve into this whole show. Good.
Thank you, Keith.
Trek, and we will see you next time on Let's See What's Out There.
Let's see what's out there.
Bye for now.